My name is Marco Hanna from PhoneDog.com, and this is the Weekly Bone. You may have heard about Motorola and Verizon's announcement last week, but the Droid name is completely living on. We have three new Droid devices called the Droid Mini, the Droid Ultra, and the Droid Maxx. The Droid Mini is basically a device to take on the HTC One Mini and the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini in a form factor that's smaller than most smartphones we call today, around 5 inches, but it also packs a serious punch. So the new Droid Mini has a 4.3-inch display with a resolution of 1280 by 720. It's not one of those QHD displays on the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini, but it has a 720p display. It has two 1.7 GHz dual-core processors along with another quad-core processor underneath in Motorola's new platform called X8. This, along with 2 GB of RAM, will be called the new Motorola X8 platform, and it is standard on all the Droid phones announced at that conference, including the Droid Mini, the Droid Ultra, and the Droid Maxx. The Motorola Droid Ultra is the thinnest 4G LTE device, that's what they're calling it so far. It is a 5-inch display device. It has a 720p display. It has the same processor and RAM setup as the Droid Mini. It's also going to have the same setup as the Droid Maxx, apart from one big option on the Droid Maxx. Now, the Droid Maxx is basically the same device as the Droid Ultra, but a little bit thicker because it has a 3500 milliamp hour battery. That much battery, Motorola says that the Droid Maxx can last 48 hours on a full charge. That means with moderate to heavy usage, 2 days out of one single charge. Next up is our own Aaron Baker taking a look at the HTC One Mini. Yes, we're talking about another mini device in this episode, and the HTC One Mini is not a phone to make fun about because it has a 4.3-inch display, it has a 1.5 GHz dual-core processor, and 1 GB of RAM. Other than that, it's basically the same device. It does have a smaller display and slightly slower specs, but the performance is very similar to the HTC One. It also has almost the same sort of features on it. So it has the 4-megapixel ultra pixel camera. It also has HTC Zo, blink feed, and all the great goodness from HTC Sense 5. It's basically a device for people who do not want a ginormous phone but still want some high-spec goodness. Lastly, the Nokia Lumia 1020 is now being praised as the ultimate camera phone of our time for now, until Nokia announces another ultimate super phone that has amazing camera. The Nokia Lumia 1020 is a great device to take photos, but it isn't a good device to live with at an everyday basis. Aaron Baker takes a closer look at the Lumia 1020 and tries to find out if it's worth the bigger price tag for all of that ultimate smartphone goodness. Overall, the Lumia 1020 has a 4.5-inch HD Plus display with a resolution of 1280 by 720. It does have a 1.5 GHz dual-core processor and 2 GB of RAM. Sounds pretty overall standard in terms of super smartphone or just smartphone standards. The Nokia Lumia 1020 is a Windows Phone 8 device. It runs a 1.5 GHz dual-core processor and 1 GB of RAM. The display size is 4.5 inches. It has a resolution of 1280 by 720, and other than that, there's nothing really special about the specs until you hear the camera specifications. The camera is a 41 megapixel camera sensor. It's a Carl Zeiss lens on the back, which means it can take amazing, beautiful snapshots and amazing 1080p video. Overall, the device is really fast as a smartphone. It does simple tasks like web browse and basically text message and email, just like any other Windows Phone 8 device, but where the phone excels is in taking photos and videos. All the photos look very clear and crisp, and with Nokia's Pro Camera application, it lets you take basically DSLR type photos. So you have all the same settings as you get on a entry-level DSLR. So you would have exposure settings, you would have aperture settings, ISO, white balance, basically anything you would find on a standard DSLR camera of today. The 1020 is definitely a great smartphone, but the $299 price tag with a 2-year contract is definitely a very high price point to point at. It might be too expensive for our taste, but overall it's a very good smartphone. Well, that's all the time I have for this week's episode of The Weekly Bone. You can follow me on Twitter at Marco M. Hanna. It's very easy to spell. It's right below me somewhere, and I will see you guys in the next video.